monovision, so I've got I have bifocal all the time.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, thank you.
I'm calling the meeting of the October 9th, the special commission to the Las Vegas Centennial meeting to order. Here, over here. Instead of reading off the paper. And thank you all for coming to this special meeting. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law? We have a council commission member, Truesdale, on the phone. And would you like to do a roll call?
Chair Goodman,
Here?
Commissioner Coffin,
Here.
Commissioner Bryan, excused, Commissioner Arnold,
Here.
Commissioner Stovall,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Feldman, excused, Commissioner Dalton, excused, Commissioner Simmons,
Here.
Commissioner Mallory, excused, Commissioner Truesdale.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. According to member Coffin, Commissioner Mowbray is on the way. Okay, agenda item 3, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. And here wishes to be heard, please give your name for the record, the amount of time for discussion, as well as the amount of discussion may be limited. There he is. Member John Mowbray, just a little. Okay, we will move on. There's no comment. We'll move on to agenda item 4, discussion for possible action regarding a grant request by Robert Cunningham Rifles Association, Thunderbird chapter in the amount of $99,000 for the Aviation Nation 2017 air show. So we have in front of us.
Yes.
Okay. If you want to make comments, Ms. Ryan, Peter, you come on up and let's go. Okay, and if you'll both know every time you speak, if you please, since the no count is repeat your name for the record as you speak and make the brief introduction. Okay.
I'm Bob Jones, and I'm from Nellis, part of the Aviation Nation Planning Team.
And I'm Bob Cunningham, so the Bob Center.
No, we have another Bob. If this is a room with 4 Bobs.
We have our Bobs too.
There's a song title there.
And Madam Mayor, may I personally thank you and for my family for all you did to help a wonderful town heal.
Never saw anything like it. I think it's something that we all should be extremely proud of, the way the unsung heroes that were out there, the way those from training, constant training, that were always going through to keep everything operative. Of course, we're the ones that still, and we did, I mean, the call for blood within an hour, we didn't have enough technicians, we didn't have enough anything to go ahead and serve that massive outpouring of love and attention. But it really was something that I think we should all be extremely proud of this community and the way we pulled together. It was just incredible, and I know I would think it's the safest community in the country, if not in the world, just because of that. And our people from all cultures, races, religions, everybody pulling one way, and especially with 43,000 tourists that we get every year. It's a great place to thank you. Thank you. It's a great place, and I'm excited. So, please continue.
Well, we'd like to go over kind of just for the council's next slide.
All right,
It's all right.
this is with fingers.
You've been on vacation, so we know.
Where do you want me to go? Right here?
Now, first,
So you don't have to repeat a lot of stuff with the members that were here the last time. I was not here. I know
all right.
that I know, but I think that I don't want you to belabor the point. If they, I don't want them to see the whole thing again.
Yeah.
You're down here.
You know, you have a great memory.
Bob, it's an age thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Please continue.
So, actually, as we explained and shared with you all last time we met, we're actually we're going to have kind of an Air Force week on this, starting on Monday. We're working with the Fremont Experience to do several things down there, demonstrations. We've got the Air Force band coming in. So it's not just the 3 days. The core of it starts on Thursday. We normally invite all of the Clark County schools down on Friday, but seeing as this year the observance for Veterans Day is that Friday, we went back to Thursday. We've been contacting them, and so far we have about 600 students that are interested, that are coming in, and I'm sure that's going to grow. So we'll have a special session for them on Thursday to talk about STEM, talk about aviation, talk about the Air Force, and then give them a tour of the flight line. At that time on Thursday, we'll have a lot of the arrival of the aircraft, so that'll be fun for them, a real educational portion on that. On Friday, we used to call this Nelson Appreciation Day, but about 2 years ago we got away from it because we kind of do an outreach to the community, and that on Friday now, we just call it Appreciation Day. And for example, this year's going to take on some new meaning for us after what the city just went through, but we have not only all the military members and their families, to include the deployed, but the installation commander just got done signing letters to all of the fire chiefs, the police, all the medical, and all the first responders. And we're opening our gates for a special show on Friday for all of them to bring their families and that. And again, we've got some production in the work to do some thank yous. We have a lot of unsung heroes now in downtown, but also we have a couple of folks on the installation that unfortunately that tragic incident, as you said, Madam Mayor, their training kicked in. They didn't even have to think about it. It was second nature. So we'll be recognizing some of them on Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, we open up the show to the public. As we said, we're going to be parking all of our guests over in the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, busing them over. And then what we've got on Saturday and Sunday, get a little ahead. You can go to the next slide.
So before you go,
Yes.
Bob, I brought something that's on that page you just passed.
The Army Air Corps?
Yeah, the Las Vegas Army Airfield. Yeah, I just brought it in and immediately sold it.
Wow.
So that's the program in the very first
What's this?
air show.
This 46 was our first air show that we had in
August 1st, 1946.
Oh my
There's the
gosh.
program, 16 pages. But be careful, because Bob owns it now. He just paid dearly for it. And so that is what it was. And it talks, the whole agenda is there, it talks all about it. And it says in there, if by any chance, that the successor organizations come to the city of Las Vegas for financial help, that they will always do their very best to make the city look good. And it is a fact. Right now? Right. You were born. No, you weren't.
Now he has it. Look at that. Now he's just.
I sold it to him cheap, but I'm sorry to interrupt there, but the point
No.
is, that's the first peacetime air show. They may have had air shows for generals, Army generals, in those days, but, okay, I didn't mean to throw the whole meeting off, I just wanted to show you that.
No, but it's a
Did he keep that? I don't want to have much. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if our historian has one of those. If
I
not,
was gonna say, you should put it in your museum out there. So
Well, it'll
here's a
cost you
quick
dearly.
turn and we're talking.
Sure, Bob will sell it.
Yeah. You'll make a
Double
profit
his
real
money.
fast. Yeah. Yeah.
you can go back one if you would to the breaking barriers.
Make sure it's full on, it's a wrap.
That's very important to start.
Oh, yeah.
And in the spirit of that, this is our 70th anniversary of the Air Force, and the theme is breaking barriers since 1947. What we'd like to do is, after we left the last meeting and talking about it, we kind of like to put a spin on that and use breaking barriers I was, in coming up that, we went through a lot of the old News Bureau and some of the LVCA's literature, and came up with a whole list of first. I just mentioned a couple of them here, you know, like gambling being legalized, McCarran, the fifth busiest airport in the nation, the first atomic, and, you know, for example, the MGM Grand, and I was surprised to find this out, but as soon as 1973, they were the largest resort casino in the world, you know, and so there's a whole list of firsts, and we want to tie those, and I've already touched base with LVE, and I want to touch base with, get with the estimate to find some folks, but we'd like to get some photos and film footage as much as possible, like we saw the last meeting with the Eldorado Days, the parade, and use those not only on the big screen, but part of the what you'll see on the screen, there's also a behind-the-scenes show that's being taped. The production team that we have is going to do we're going to do streaming, live streaming the entire air show. Originally, we were just going to send it to our deployed folks, but now we're going to the Armed Forces Network, which is around the world, and then we're also engaging with things like YouTube and the other providers. So all of that, we want to take this with the Las Vegas breaking barriers, all the firsts that the city's done, and we want to ingrain that in that film footage so that it'll go out on the internet. We'll also be showing snippets of it between acts out on the big screen. And then some other ideas we'd like to do is going to talk to the Mob Museum. The Atomic Museum has already said that they're interested in coming. Get some folks from the Visitor Center at the Hoover Dam to set up a display. I know last year we had the National Park Service out there. So get as many folks from those first that the city enjoyed and have them there. I know that there's some folks, there's some businesses here that do character dress-ups and things like that, because we've approached them as far as being the Wright brothers, because one of the things Bob will tell you is we got the Wright flyer that we shared with y'all at Rancho High School that's coming out to the show, and I'd like to have a couple of characters, Orville and Wilbur Wright out there, and these characters know a little bit about that airplane, so that when the kids come and ask them, they can intelligently tell them. Well, I'd like to do the same with some of the things that we project for the first for the city, whether it's mobsters, whether it's whatever it is. I'd like to ingrain that and incorporate that. Also, trying to touch base with Lauren York, Miss Nevada, also Miss Las Vegas, to see if I know that we did have those folks out 3 air shows ago. I believe Senator Reed's daughter was, I can't remember whether it was Miss Las Vegas or Miss Nevada. I think it was Miss Nevada, and she sang the national anthem. So I want to touch base with these 3 young ladies, also Miss Nevada Dean, to see if by some chance they sing. If they do, I've got an opening for the national anthem on one of the days, and I'd like to incorporate them in that as well. So we'll be working with LVE, the city, other organizations here that we can get that historic literature so that we can present it out there on the flight line, on the live streaming. And by the way, that live streaming, once the show is over, will not end. It will be out there. And in fact, we are going to be having a 2018 show, so we're going to start planting seed for that on that. So, and then the phone app, it's not live yet. We are right now putting information on it, but we've got the framework for it. So I would say probably by a week, you'll be able to go to whether you have an Android or whatever phone you have, you can go to your app store and just put Aviation Nation, and for free you can pull up the app. So, and we've got a button on there, one of the menu items, it's our community, and a lot of what I just told you about, we're also going to put on there. We'll put links for the cities so that they can go in, whether we put LasVegas.com or whatever to get. The whole idea is, and I guess this would be a good time to talk about Vegas Strong.
Right.
Okay, was talking to the Visitors Bureau and basically asked them, hey, what we would like to do is, Aviation Nation is the next largest event for the city. So what we want to do is utilize that as a springboard to work with the folks here to use Aviation Nation as a destination event. How can we do this? So the folks over at the Convention Authority put me in contact with the Vegas Strong folks and R&R Partners, and we are having a meeting, I'm waiting to figure this week, and we're going to see what we can do to leverage and attract people to the city. We're also going to be working with a lot of the casinos in town and use their advertisement in that to also advertise the air show and to make it a destination event. Will in turn give them an expedite route into the show. The folks will not have to go to the Speedway, but we'll expedite them in one of their shuttles to the show and an expedite pickup. So there's some advantage for them too. So, all right.
I think we actually skipped over the slide that is there. Of course, last time one of the things that, and I think Bob Jones has filled that in pretty well, and so I want to also sort of, how many people realize just how connected the early McCarran Airfield is to the history of Las Vegas and to Nellis Air Force Base?
I don't understand the question.
How do you remember the history of how close the original McCarran Airfield is to the history of
How
Las
close
Vegas?
it is? About 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah, and bottom line is that in January of 1942, the city of Las Vegas purchased the original McCarran, which was a private airfield, and then quickly donated it to the Army. And that is the original history. Captain Nellis was a local who was still in action.
I think it was Lieutenant Nellis then.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant, right?
Was he killed in Korea?
No.
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 T-47 over Germany.
Graduate of Las Vegas High School.
And
From Searchlight, wasn't he?
Yeah, Searchlight came up here to go to school.
My former partner, Bill Morris.
Changed reach, I think.
Gary?
But this is a celebration, I understand, of the U.S. Air Force created in 1947, correct?
correct.
Okay.
It also is that because this is the largest air show that the Air Force puts on, this is the culmination celebration. In September, of course, Andrews Air Force Base, and you saw a lot of people on television. That was sort of the kickoff of that. This is the finale. And it is, again, the largest air show that the Air Force, any Air Force base puts on. It is actually right here at Howard Nellis. And then also, a little other piece of history that some probably know, but I just found out not too long ago, was that the original headquarters for Nellis Air Force Base was actually right here downtown. And the original barracks with 3,000 of the Army troops was right here downtown. So, and was here during the duration of all of World War II. And then after that is when the base proper, I would say, the front gate was moved north, and the new McCarran Field was created.
Can I ask you a question?
No,
That's the city federal building, is that?
I believe it is.
Or is not?
I believe it was.
Yeah, and frankly, I
They
think that is.
tailored it.
In fact, the picture in the lower left, that's the main gate out there at Nellis.
Yes.
And I haven't seen them personally, but I understand that one or both of those pillars
Yes.
are downtown.
Well, not
Or at
downtown,
the,
but
No, they're out on
They're
the
in the
strip.
county.
fixed base
Yeah.
operation
Yeah.
coming off Las Vegas Boulevard.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
that, in fact, in 48, I believe, is when McCarran Airport moved down here, from here. One of the reasons thereabouts was because we were, at that time, when we became a separate service in 47, we started bringing in more airframes and that, it got more and more crowded, and so did the airline traffic, so we parted ways at that point.
Do you feature the?
Well, that's
base
actually-
For a number of
It's
years?
not.
Yeah, you're shifting times. They shifted that much earlier than that in '47 when McCarran Airport was all but shut down.
Okay, I understand was they're looking at her history, was her historic.
Yeah, it was.
It was, yeah, it was shut. What kept it alive was the fact that it was used as an exit place for the servicemen who were coming out of World War II. But Western Airlines, which was there before the air base, Western Air Express, excuse me, wasn't Western Airlines, Western Air Express. They moved
Call
out.
my name.
The Army said, we really need this, and it's was a great spot, plenty of
Right.
room. But again, outside the
Instead of
city
mail carrier
of
for
Las
South
Vegas,
Lake.
and yes, everything within the valley, and I'd even claim Hoover Dam, but it's not in the city of Las Vegas. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and thanks for filling in the blanks there. I'm
Yeah,
a
but
better
yours is
historian
better.
of Colorado Springs Airport, having been a city commissioner in Colorado Springs. That's why I'm here. Thanks for filling in the
Sure.
blanks. That
Let me ask you a question, if I may.
Okay, Member
Yeah,
Bryan is,
yeah. I want to vote for this. There is no question, there's an enormous community benefit. There's an attraction to bring in people here, which I'm very much in favor of. That's not our mission. Those of you in the service are familiar with the term mission creep. And my concern is I want to hear more about, the history, the controversy of how it came here, It closed. I mean, Nellis shut down after the war. I think it was reopened maybe 1947, 48. I'll defer to, and how that came about. I mean, that's really the history. I'm perhaps a little less troubled than Bob is the fact that it's outside the city of limits, because I do think of Nellis and Las Vegas as being inextricably tied. They played an important part. I was a kid when the war was on. We went out there for, the community events to help the hometown folks understand what was happening. They brought in shot-out aircraft. Went through the B-29, crawled through that tunnel to open Bombay doors as a kid. So this is a big thing to me, but I want to hear more about the history and how it's connected to Las Vegas. Then this is the 70th anniversary, important as that is. I don't quarrel for a moment about that. As significant, tell us what you're going to be telling the folks out there about the history of Las Vegas and its connection. And, even something about Bill Nellis, who was a Searchlight resident, a graduate of Las Vegas High School. That brings the Vegas tie.
And without getting redundant, sold off of the record, as you're doing that, if you could explain what money in the grant is going specifically to that. Because one of my questions is what part of this grant goes to the Las Vegas history part? And just let me preface, here's the NRS that the senator is speaking about. This is a direct quote. The state law says that we have to pay for projects relating to the commemoration of the history of the city. And it's not generic city, city is capitalized, the city of Las Vegas. And they list 3 or 4 examples: historic markers, improvement, restoration of historic buildings. That's the filter I'm putting this through, and I'd like to know specifically, because we all would like to, on all the things that you're adapting to what occurred in our community is wonderful, and the things that you're doing out there, that's a plus. But the money you're asking for was a request that was made several weeks ago, I think almost 2 months ago. And so that's glad that you're adding those things on, but I feel a little bit uncomfortable we're using that as a point to get the $99,000. So if we could stick specifically with what we under the state law have to follow, what part of this $99,000 goes towards the history of the city of Las Vegas? Because this is really a thin budget. You got one item, $99,000 for streaming and $8,000 for the right flyer. And we all love Wilbur and Orville, but I don't remember them voting in Las Vegas.
They were dating kids, as you'll recall.
So what I'm hearing, just to move it along to get specific, what are the specific items, how much do they cost? They're really going to be part of the entire presentation that's there that are specific to the
then, the other item is the 91,000 for production and sound. Both of those, and what we're going to do is, not only are we going to utilize the production with big screens, we're going to be telling the Las Vegas story as well as the Air Force story. We're going to be having, as I mentioned on the second slide there, a lot of the first, the breaking barriers, the history, and how it interrelates with us. We do talk about Lieutenant Nelson. I know they have a article on him. We're also going to be doing historical footage on him to start out the show, to tell the history of Nellis and the city. On that, Senator, you mentioned about a B-29 that you guys climbed through. We're going to be having that at the show. He's going to be here. We're going to allow people to go in and talk about how the B-29 also practiced bombing over our ranges. We were a gunnery school. We're having the Tuskegee Airmen here, which were part of, while they're not from Vegas, they set a history here. And, our gunnery competition that we had here in Vegas over the ranges and that, they weren't supposed to do very good, and they ended up walking away with it. So that's a history. But going back to the history of the city, again, working with these organizations, I want to get as much history, footage, I want to get photos, and that's what that production team is going to be, and the production showing is going to utilize. It's also in there is the internet, right? That's all part of that production package. So we're going to take all of this, and we're going to live stream it, as well as tell that story of the city, as well as Nellis, the history of the two, and growing up. We're going to be telling it throughout the weekend. And also in one of the hangars, and Esther had a map in here, but at Show Center, there's a hangar that's roughly about 100 by 80, and what we're doing is, that's where we're going to have a lot of these displays. Last year we had the National Park, this year we're going to try and have the Monster Museum, and all of the city to tell the story, because believe it or not, I mean, you all know the city better than I do. I've only been here for about 30 years, all right? But I'm even surprised today that people don't know that Nellis Air Force Base exists and what the tie is to this city and how we've grown up. You know, so we want to not only with the locals but the folks that we're going to attract from around the world. We want to tell them about Nellis. We want to tell them about the city and how we grew up together and how. And as I mentioned before, I was on active duty for 27 years. And bar none, the support that this city has for the base is just phenomenal. And it pales with some of the other places I've been, both in the States and overseas. So we do want to tell that story. We want to tell the history of Vegas. We want to dovetail it into the history of Nellis and how we grew up together. We set a little bit of a stepping stone last year, but I want to grow on that. And I want to do that through the history.
Did you give any thought to the people that were attracted to Nellis that stayed here during the war? Harry Claiborne comes to mind, for example. I mean, that's a linkage to Las Vegas. He came out here, he hadn't been from here, decided to stay and became a federal judge. He was an assemblyman, probably the premier criminal defense lawyer for decades in Las Vegas. I'm trying to help out with the nexus to the city.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because one of the things, in fact, I was talking to the production director today, and ensuring that they've got cameras that are going to follow the aircraft, but I want to make sure that they bring cameras that they can walk around, and that's kind of what we want to do. And that's one of the plans is, I want to do interviews with people. And so, if we can find folks like that, we can either pre-tape it. Well, not him, but others if he's not around. But, I mean, and tape those and show those. Put them on, we're also going to have it on the app. You know, so they're between the production screens that everybody at the show are going to be able to see, the live internet, and then the phone app. We're going to be telling the city's history and how it impacted Nellis and how Nellis impacted the city.
Remember, bro.
Okay.
Are you?
Go ahead,
Okay. When we had, as I spoke at the last meeting, and when we were discussing the grant, the grant at our smaller meeting, we had talked about, we too wanted to support it, but on a smaller scale. $91,000 for production and sound is a heavy lift. And it's kind of hard to see real Las Vegas historical outcomes for that amount of money, is my major concern.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Get it done in time for the fair.
This is, Hannah's expressing one of my biggest concerns as well. And, but on top of that, one of the things, I mean, obviously this is an event, and our biggest concern has been that this really felt more like a sponsorship, not really a crafting of a historic project that would really meet within our mission statement. And we've had other projects. We have one other project that we've done that way that it's left not a very fabulous taste in all of our mouths. So I don't think we want to go farther down that road. But this brings to mind some of the things that we've talked about in our strategic plan, where there have been videos that have been created that we were not, they weren't things that we necessarily thought we didn't have an evaluation or an assessment to say, well, what videos might we want? What documentaries are missing in our community? So it almost seems like something like this would be great. I mean, just the conversation that I've heard on the phone on the way over here, and since I've been here, we all know how much history there has been here. And I don't think necessarily that a 2-day event I've been to that wonderful aviation show. It is remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable. And tons of people flock to it because it's so fabulous. And I'm thrilled that it's back. I just don't know that people are going to be there to really, it's not the purpose of the event to really present history. People aren't necessarily looking for it, and it would happen maybe by osmosis as people walk through or what have you. But I think it really deserves, the history of Nellis and the tie-in with the city of Las Vegas really does deserve, it's a story that needs to be told and people need to be aware of it. I think it would benefit our sense of history, and I think it would benefit Nellis from the standpoint that, you're a critical part of this community, historically and into the future. And so I just wanted to put a little bookmark here as something that, based on our strategic plan, we might want to look at in the future to fund a project that would do exactly what we're talking about, and that is to really document and put out for the public's consumption in a very effective way the history of Nellis.
I recall on our president of our operation here who just whispered to me, I think the concept that this might make it really significant for what we're empowered to do. Mrs. Reinke, please speak out.
Yes, thank you for the record. I was just thinking one of the things that we have struggled with is getting the word on the Centennial license plates and how you purchase a Centennial license plate and what it goes to. So if we did approve this grant, maybe one of our stipulations would be to have that use that as an advertising board, those big screens in front of 400,000 people. Knowing that a lot of them are tourists, but we still have a lot of locals out there, and just use that as a way to market the Centennial plates and try to get a Centennial plate because of the place being supportive of the aviation.
So your city license plate has
Advertising.
For the record, Hugh
I don't
Snook,
think-
I
I don't
mentioned
think
the
I-
last meeting that I am honorary wing commander of the 99th, so not that there's any compensation for that. It's strictly an honorary, and I go to receptions and things like that. But to me, Nellis, being the largest Air Force base in the United States, the most important Air Force base in the United States, to me, North Las Vegas, it's part of our heritage here. Those boundaries were pretty vague back then, but like Bob said, so many people have no idea what happens here. This is the one opportunity young people can get on that base. You just can't drive in that gate. Just like the senator climbed through the B-29, these kids, like my grandson, can do that now. It goes beyond just an old building restoring. I know it's a little vague here, but
I think the benefits are just huge. I want to support it. I think that the bulk of the money is for these screens, and part of it's rental of the screens themselves. It's not all the documentary.
Well, it's not only just the screens, but it's the production team. I mean, we have a production team that's coming out because they've got to mix all the stuff, do all the internet, shoot out the live streaming, and have camera crews all wireless. Go ahead, sir.
You know, I didn't get all that detail. I looked at the line item, though. That is a big number just for that, so I'm sure there's more behind it.
Well, to tell you the truth, not to interrupt you, sir, but we went out for a contract. I know 91,000 sounds like a lot, but believe it or not, we got 4 bids, and this is on FBO Gov. We just put out for 4 bids, and we described what the requirements were. And 91K was the lowest by a long shot. I mean, I had a bid of almost $2 million to do what we asked them to do, and we go, yeah, thank you very much. Not to gold plate it, but to go back, collaborate. You were talking about film, that you all would like to get some film footage and whatnot. If we get, as I mentioned, we'd like to work with whoever and make, not only use that footage here, but if you kind of let us know what you're looking at and what you'd like to gear toward, we could probably facilitate.
I would suggest that you get a hold of David Riggleman at KCLV, Arcade 2.
Okay.
Melissa Duran actually got all this film that we've been using in a historical effort. And that can just run as it integrates, and you could coordinate through David Riggleman, the head of our PIO.
Member John O'Bray, I've always been interested in the history of Las Vegas, and taking aside for a moment the jurisdictional limits of Sahara and all of that, if we just encompass the whole valley as one Las Vegas, I'd be interested in preserving the history of that part of the Vegas. When they used to put the pickup trucks.
No, we already tried that.
All tourists on there, that I understand because their inaccessibility are pretty well preserved, or they haven't been touched in 7 years, but that would be interesting for historical preservation, if we could integrate that into your video. I know it's kind of a short notice, you got a couple weeks here, but there was an article done in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, I know it's a sensitive topic here, that a few...
It's not their editorial policy you're talking about. You're on safe ground. You're on safe ground.
Okay, but they had some aerial photos then and now, and you can still see the tracks and everything. And that would be interesting to preserve for our city's heritage.
Well, and of course, I know we're limited, but our restrictions as to what we're able to do through the Centennial may limit us.
Okay.
And I know what we have in KCLV is concentrating in the city confines historically, so that should do it. Member Arnold, you raised the hand.
Thank you. So to start, tremendous amount of respect for what you guys are doing here and what you've done for the country in the past. Going back to what Bob's brought up and trying to find that nexus, I think you've come back to us with some new great ideas. My concern is that I don't think they're fully fleshed out yet. And for my purposes, I'd love to see you guys come back with something a little bit more detailed so we can help guide you. And that was kind of to my point last time is I was trying to encourage you to reach out to some of the board members to help you, guide this a little bit more. Come back with something that we can all get behind because, again, like what Bob said, trying to stick to the intent of what this board is for. I think there are still some elements there, especially some of the stuff that you brought up. And where we're at timing-wise, I would really like to see us just try to now hunker down for next year. And let's work together, figure out how to make this actually something you can get unanimous support on and just, do something wonderful. So that's where I'm at right now unless I hear something different.
Well, I apologize for not having it, concrete, but unfortunately, with the government, like the contracts for the production, 1 October was our new fiscal year, and I couldn't even talk to these folks. So in the last, couple of days, I've been talking to these guys because we've got,
And I understand, and I get it, but for us, it's not necessarily. I don't think the production part is what is going to get us there. I think it's us coming up with what are the actual elements? What are you guys going to focus on? Give us a little bit more of a narrowed, focus. Some 5 key points of what you guys are going to go after here, instead of relying on this production company to kind of pull together a bunch of footage in the last 2 weeks, and we just hope it kind of hits all the marks. You follow?
Well, yeah, Member Brown, I think we're pretty handcuffed logistically because of our NRS charter. And, if we violate that, then we stand to put our commission in jeopardy.
Yes, ma'am, I understand it. One of the items
One last thought.
you're talking about with the, there's a lot of aerial acts in that. One of the things, for example, Senator Brown, you brought the B-29, for example. How we use, in the acts that we have, the ones, and we have a lot of our warbirds that performed here, okay, like the F-86, the B-29. During the time that those are flying, or that, for example, a B-29 being a static aircraft, we're going to be telling the story while that intro's going on, and what it did not only here during the war, but what it did here in Nellis. The B-29 were already writing the script for what it did here and how long it was here before it jumped over. So we are tying in the acts and the history of here, what they did, because a lot of the jets that we have all came over our 2.9 million acres out there on the range, and that's all the history of this community. So all of that, the production is just a medium to tell the story, or one of them.
Right.
Okay.
But we just need to better
Okay,
define
I'm
the
gonna
story.
make a suggestion.
Sorry.
Because we have so much in the can that's all historical video. It would seem that it's possible for both of you to meet with Esther, to get with Melissa Durant and David Riggleman, see what we have, which is all city-focused, then how Nellis figures into that, what we have documented already from the atomic testing, everything that's city-focused, to run on the, whatever you're calling it, the streaming video and media crew, perhaps getting in something on the advertising the historical plate, the Centennial plate, and then acknowledging that the funding for whatever is going to be awarded comes from the Centennial Committee. If in fact, and I don't know at that point, once they've done it, seen the camera ready that we already have, how much, what the cost is, how much time they can give to the city's history on their screening out there.
Mayor, this is a $99,000, and it would have been a $100,000 Christmas tree. This is what it is. We're trying to hang pieces on there, and they're falling off, and all of a sudden, now we're getting video together a few weeks before this event takes place. We're force-feeding these things in because we all support Nellis, and we all support this air show and the Air Force and what you're doing with the citizens. But again, as the commission said, as much as I believe that you are the mayor of the entire Las Vegas Valley, I don't care what a certain county commissioner may think.
Yeah.
We have our boundaries, which are tight with that. I think that and you can't put together other than a schlocky piece of video in 2 or 3 weeks. I was hoping when I saw this budget there would be some real detail to this thing that we could say, yes, this fits, no, this doesn't work, and you could walk out of here. We're already starting to set another precedent. You came last year and got $21,000 because it was celebrating Nellis Air Force Base. Now, I don't know what the original grant was 140? $170,000. And so now we're starting to get into, dare I say, El Dorado money. And we become the sponsor of the air show. And I thought the Air Force was paying for a lot of this.
Sir, we do. We're spending out of our budget $750,000. This show.
Who's we?
It's coming out of, we got it from our boss, our command, Air Force money that's appropriated by Congress for us to run operations, and this is part of it. We got this money just.
$750,000.
Yes, sir.
But there are things that the Air Force
Oh, I'm
right.
is not allowed
comment that Esther said, I'm just the go-between here, so if you repeat what you said just now.
Yes, I believe our communications department already has a lot of the canned video, so it's not like they would have to go out and produce anything to fit this. We have video.
But would it reduce the $91,000?
No, we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, that's what I'm not, yeah. And Nellis was more important to me than it was probably anybody in this room, because I worked at a record store when I was a teenager, and those servicemen paid my salary. I mean, I look forward to the first of the month. But so I'm really, really respectful of Nellis, but then I'm also respectful of what we can legitimately, legally do without getting the commission into a pickle.
$91,000 doesn't fit what our charge is. If it said $91,000 documentary on Nellis Air Force Base and the community, which I think is kind of where you were going, that's a whole different story. And even as much as the thing you're doing with the right point, I think that's going to be wonderful. That doesn't fit. He's going to a Las Vegas school, but then that's not even that's really squishing it under the table. And I'm worried that if we get too far away from our primary Nevada Revised Statute responsibility, we could lose this money. We could lose this money for all the other projects that are worthy, whether it's West Side School or the Mob Museum or all the kind of things that you alluded to.
Yeah.
So that's why I have a real question for this, and I really like the idea of Mr. Arnold regarding working with them to come up with something for next year that really fits our mandate.
This is Louise Helton for the record, and I support what Bob just said. I think that having the year to plan and really coordinate with not just the city, but with Channel 10. I mean, this is an event. This is a big event. And there's a lot of community organizations that could all work to promote it and develop it as we get closer and closer to really make it a big ta-da instead of something that, oh, I didn't even know that happened. I would have loved to have gone. And just to develop more support for the event. If we did, I mean, having a year, if we did indeed decide to do a documentary, if that's out there, working with Channel 10, which goes into every single school and around the entire state to promote this kind of thing. You know, if the documentary was, you know, if that's something that came up that they would be interested in putting out to the schools. There's a lot of potential there that I think could build, it would be good for everybody. And especially it would just be more strategic and money that we would all consider well spent because it wasn't just sort of mashed into a heap and said, here, well, let's figure it out.
I really hope you're hearing from us that we really, really want to support your efforts out there. So I think everyone here is willing to volunteer. I don't see it happening this year the way it is, but please reach out to us, and you've got some really key experts here that I know can guide you to a project that we can all get around. I know it. I know it's there.
My final thought is, my son was in the Air Force, and I have studied Nellis Air Force Base, Western Air Express, aviation in this community starting in 1921 with the first flight, which was in the city of Las Vegas, right where the Mob Museum is. It took off from there and flew over $10 to get a flight. And it's a wonderful history. It's colorful history. There were times that the citizens of North Las Vegas didn't want their daughters to marry anybody from the air base, and all that was worked out. There were plane crashes within that. Men lost their lives serving our country. So it has a wonderful, great history. And at the time that the document was signed, as you alluded to, it had to be signed by 2 city councils. We had 2 city commissions at the same time. First, the only time in our history. Half of them resigned, and then the law said that they couldn't resign, but in the meantime, another council had been appointed. So when you look at the document, you will see 2 sets of city commissioners that had to sign off on. So there's some wonderful history that can be brought out. So I would be really happy to help work on the documentary.
For next year, for 18
Yeah, I think we're squeezing.
Even a display display that could be out at the Nevada State Museum, then the Springs Preserve, I mean, leading up to that event. There's the new Pioneer Square that, or that little beautiful little street that they've got up there that's bringing a lot of kids out there for field trips and things.
Boomtown?
Yes, Boomtown,
Boomtown.
thank you so much. And, you know, with its proximity to the State Museum, I can't imagine that we couldn't work with them to, you know, to bring the whole thing together to really promote it so that it just makes the whole thing more successful and more history is available, because that's our whole point, is people don't know nearly enough about this town, and we've got incredible history. For us to have landed in this little square patch of dirt in 1905 and built what we've done in such a short period of time, it's just pretty darn amazing. And those stories really need to be out there.
And
Mr.
you're-
Member Center, what
Well, I was just going to remind every member center for the record, we spend so much more money for Eldorado Rodeo. It's not held in the city of Las Vegas. I don't know where it'll be held next year, but it hasn't been in the past. So we've set some precedents. I know that's the charter, and we have to follow that, but there's some areas here. But again, I think you're right. Try to get more detail on exactly what they have planned. I'd like to help them this year, but maybe next year we can do something better and something we can all agree to. So.
I think you've got unanimous, remember, Brian, I think you've got unanimous consent on this thing, and I don't want to see this rejected. You know, I don't think procedurally we want to do that. It seems to me that we've got a couple of choices. Move that it be continued and put on the agenda for next year, or if they want to withdraw it at this time, but I don't want the record to reflect it.
I think withdrawal would probably, because there's probably be a whole more detail. We just, we just obey it, we'd have to take this exact same thing up. To withdraw would be the best.
I agree.
Member Brown, is there some way we could, to Esther's point, advertise our license plates on their
May I make
video?
one comment? Associated with that, everybody I checked with had no idea what that plate funds. Now, there's probably a lot of people that do. So advertising that plate now, next year, and the year after that, could only help. Because again, people have bought that plate, but they don't know the benefit.
So maybe we could.
That'd be a good thing to put in your
We
next
could look
grant
at that.
request.
Yeah.
We didn't know what would sell today, we're learning.
Well, the history, as Bob Stoll, the Wright brothers, I've got plans to go to Dayton, Ohio. I want to see their bicycle shop.
I thought you were
That
going to
has
say you knew
absolutely
them.
nothing to do with Las Vegas and the history of it. The fact that we're trying to make financial history, I'm for that, but that's not tied to the history of Las Vegas. Maybe we're not driving the point hard. It's got to be linked to the history of Las Vegas. And
Richard, we understand, last year was easier.
yeah. Well, maybe that's our fault, not yours. That may be our fault. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to,
Well, can we hear from Ms. Ponticelli?
So there's been a lot of discussion as to what to do with this particular application. Unfortunately, in compliance with open meeting law, we are considering the application as it was submitted to the Centennial Commission. So to consider it for outside expenses, for advertising, that's just gonna have to be another item. It may very well be that our executive director has some administrative authority to work with Nels regarding the advertisement at the upcoming show. And that's something we just have to get more information on. And then in terms of what to do with the application, I think it's probably most appropriate to have a motion to withdraw. Would be with any prejudice. It would just be, you know,
Yeah.
pretty much given the consensus
Okay.
of the group, we don't feel like this is the application at the time is
This year.
that has all the details that you need to make the appropriate decision. So, given that.
Okay. Just point of clarification, if we make a motion to withdraw, do we have to make another motion to consider advertising
It's not
on
agendized.
it? Oh, two different things.
Member Brown, because that's not on the agenda and
Mhm.
it's never
I
been
see.
part of
Okay.
the application,
Right,
I
okay.
cannot make a motion
Okay.
on that particular item. However, the executive director does have some administrative authority
Great, okay.
to perhaps work with them.
Okay, thank you.
And, Esther, just to clarify, the thought process behind that was if we did, so I said in the beginning, if we did grant them as part of the historical information that they would be putting up on the screens, that would just be incorporated into that, so people would know where that historical
Right,
information is
okay.
coming from.
That's
given
wonderful.
By the Centennial. That's not asking them to go out and advertise the Centennial license plate for
Right.
any of that.
That's good.
That's where my thought came from.
Do we have
Okay.
a motion on the floor?
I make a motion to withdraw without prejudice.
A second?
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that, Mr. Truesdale, and I thought Councilman Coffin was calling in, but I guess he didn't. I think it was unanimous or not? Opposed?
That we have 7.
Yeah. It was unanimously, so it will be withdrawn and.
I'd only suggest that the next grant request would be sometime as soon as possible,
Yeah.
given all the things that you've got to deal with, rather than, this event's going to take place in, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, which is kind of a little bit of my angst. But if we were able to look at a documentary or something, or some other help with displays, maybe at our January, February, we're in what, October? When's our next meeting?
November 20th. And then we
So, I mean, sometime early next year.
And Bob, maybe it's more of just a sit-down meeting with a few chosen people that doesn't violate any
Right.
rules. But I think there's a couple key, you disagree?
No, I would agree if the law allowed it, but we'd have to post that meeting.
But it doesn't have to be the whole crew.
Discussion about how we can meet as a group, a working group, reporting to executive director as a club.
Right.
Not
Not the mayor, not to the chairman.
Mayor?
Yes, please, Mr. Truesdale.
Yeah, Member Truesdale. Is it possible at this point in time, because I think we spent a lot of time talking about a very good event and how we can manipulate things to meet the event's needs, but I think we, as a commission, should put together a matrix, if you will, giving staff what kind of receivables or what kind of participation in future applications make them viable to be heard by the board as a commission.
The new grant application.
And if that takes a special meeting or another meeting or an intended item, I can understand that because of the open meeting. But I think there's, I'll give you for instance, if part of this was we were getting 10 historic markers from different properties in the core of the city, highlighting the importance of Nellis Air Force Base to the previous history of Las Vegas, I think it'd be easier for us to understand, or easier for us to say that fits within the mission. So I'm one of those people think, as we take in applications, the director should be able to have that expectations there in counseling people as they make applications.
Okay. Good
I know it's
point.
very hard for us to meet one-on-one with somebody and say, you guys should bring this, because I don't think that's the way it should function, but I think we as a commission could reach out or at least provide good direction to staff and our director as we review applications going forward.
Okay, thank you, I think that's a good suggestion, everybody's nodding.
Yeah.
So, that was a motion passed unanimously, and,
You voted against it, didn't you?
No, I didn't. No,
Okay.
That's just the kind of guy he is.
Yeah, I know.
Next
and
time.
you know, maybe, and just moving forward, since that was the recommendation, I think we should always work a year ahead.
Yeah.
Your federal items, there'll never be a time that you can open up and get your information October 1st and then have something by mid-November. There's just no way. So we should always, in the future, for Nellis and all the activities that this commission is involved in, do a year out. So next year at this time, be planning 19. And then whatever we can do, I'd love you to give them the tape or whatever you
a question. Is there a limit on the executive director's authority to contribute?
Is there shouldn't be any restriction on the membership contributing privately?
No, I meant on the executive director's authority to contribute to. Yeah.
You know, right now, we're not even sure what that is. So I think there's a lot of discussion that has to be
More
more
in this
David
all review
Rickman.
of what we're
So
doing.
I don't know what exactly this is an idea.
It was $1.80.
Remember, Brian, but would it not be as a first step to direct Riggleman and else to take a look at what we have in terms of archival footage, history, so that it could be assembled to help them in their presentation
Right.
next year?
Yeah.
And along with the
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you guys got there, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is Louise Helton for the record. One of the other things, when we actually, back in 2005, we put together a history book for the school district. I mean, the school district is, the fifth largest school district in the nation with over 200,000 kids who will take information home and bring their families to an event like this if they get excited about it. And I can't imagine that a piece like this, what we learned to do is we worked with the school district with their curriculum departments, the one that covers history, and as long as what we put together tied to the standards that they're required to teach, they were so happy just to plug it right in to their lesson plans. And this is the kind of thing that I can't imagine with this much time, if we worked with them, we could make it serve so many purposes.
And hold the premiere at next year's air show.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it is,
Esther, will
yeah.
you then coordinate with the two bombs, please, and get them into move forward?
I love that idea.
Right.
Yeah, it would be.
So, sorry, gentlemen, but it is, the timeline's just a killer. And so let's do that, and then if you'll work with them now and whatever you have, and David Riegelman, I think that's okay. So let's move on to agenda item 5, discussion regarding topics for future agenda items by the commission. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items. Any discussion should be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the commission and/or whether such proposed items should be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur. No action should be taken. Are there any other subjects? Yes.
Still off for the record, should we put something on the agenda to deal with the question of the
Truesdale's suggestion.
yeah,
Would follow this.
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
So you're on, Commissioner Truesdale for that. Anybody else, anything else? Okay, we'll move on to 7, which is our second citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to members within the jurisdiction of the commission. No subject may be acted upon by the commission unless the subject is on the agenda scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please give your name for the record. You have a discussion and a single subject as well as a matter of time. Every single speaker so that may be limited. I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.